Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we spit the bit.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back for a reaction edition of Locked On Texas Tech as we look back to Fort Worth, the scene of a what the hell just happened Red Raider defeat at the hands of the Horned Frogs. Certainly, as I have it there on the screen, Chris, felt like one of those rescuing defeat from the jaws of victory types of results. And for a team that's been very successful in tight game situations, one-score possession type of ball games, disappointed to see this result. And there was a whole lot that added up to get you to where you got a 1-point loser at the end of the day. So we'll try to process some of that today. We'll also get to what turned out to be a fairly lengthy list of walking wounded, as we saw some key contributors obviously have to hit the sideline. Saw a freshman quarterback thrown into the mix, which obviously we will get into. But, man, the heights of frustration with some good things happening. And then obviously at the end, a collapse that led you to taking your second consecutive loss on the year.
Yeah.
It's your turn to talk now, please.
I know. Yeah. I hope these coaches and players can get over this easier than me. That was I mean, this one to me much harder to get over or accept or it stings a lot worse. However you want to phrase it, way more so than the Baylor game. Felt
really?
like the Baylor game. Yeah, I felt like the Baylor game, you just never were really in it. You never had any kind of control in it. You just were soundly beaten. I think in this one, you kind of had it until you didn't. And I think that you played well in a lot of phases or some different things in this game. Now, there was plenty that you didn't do well. But I think when you factor in road, you factor in turnstile as far as who's in the game and who's not, who's running to the locker room, who's on the sidelines in a sling. You factor all that in, and for you to have a 17-point lead semi-late in the game and not get a result, and that's a team that you really want to beat. I know I did, but yeah, that one hurt. It's not about me, but it hurt me personally. It's just different vibe after that one, I think, than the Baylor game in a way. But yeah, I don't know where you want to start here, but because you're down 14-3, and it's not exactly didn't come out, like gangbusters necessarily. A bit slow to start on offense, a bit a big play, giving up some of those on defense, and you're thinking, uh-oh. But you just you kept fighting, and you did it with a variety of different cast of characters, and to the point where TCU people can say whatever they want, but I mean their crowd was leaving, their crowd was filing out in rapid fashion, and there'll be a lot of folks that claim that they saw the end of that game that were not in the stands. Yeah. But yeah, they missed for their team anyway. They missed a good ending, but damn.
It was almost like there were three different games played, because you get off to a bad start, 14-3 in the first quarter, you're down. Over the next two quarters, you outscored Texas Christian 28-7. So there's game number 2. And then unfortunately the fourth quarter had to arrive, where you were once again outscored 14-3. I mean, it was like three separate little phases of the game there that you felt much differently about your team, whether you were in purple or you were in red and black. And I can't say that I necessarily agree about, how you feel about this one versus the Baylor one. You got your ass kicked totally against Baylor. I'm going to always feel worse about this. This was a hard fought, close loss on the road. And it makes it worse because obviously, like you said, with I think about 6 minutes or something left in the third quarter, you had a 17-point lead. So it wasn't exactly like, boom, it was back and forth all day long, and you just came up a little bit short. I get that there's an added layer to it because you served up on a platter some things that obviously you gave away. But just me personally as a fan, I can't say that I feel more discouraged following this one than I did following the Baylor game. Some of that has to do with the injury layer as well, I guess. I mean, who had on the bingo card that we're going to see Will Hammond in meaningful road game action and that he would look sharp, crisp, like a guy that was in command? We'll get more into the future with Will Hammond on Monday's episode, Chris. But with all of that sort of combined, I'm taking away obviously disappointment in the loss, but not as much of a soul-crushing feeling as, again, I personally did following the Baylor game. I thought you did bounce back. Like, you responded to what was an ultra disappointing week, which we talked about all last week.
Yeah, and here's partly why I guess I feel that way, because in one aspect, both of these teams are very flawed. I think most teams in the Big 12 are this way. The league has been pretty much what everybody thought it would be. There's BYU and Iowa State obviously are kind of starting to separate. I think, Colorado and Kansas State are just right there. Mm-hmm. I think they still have flaws. There's some close wins or some, lucky win, but they keep figuring out ways to get it done. But, when I see Texas Tech now, this is why you were picked 9th in the league. You are capable on any given Saturday, but you're also capable on any given Saturday to live up to the top half or the bottom half, and you're just kind of middling right now, whether it be youth or not quite there yet. And as you mentioned, you get a glimpse of the future, and that certainly looks like a lot of fun with some of the younger players. And it wasn't just Will Hammond that we saw some glimpses of potential greatness there. But here's what was, I guess, made me feel, I guess, even worse about this one is that, Calvin, if I tell you that you're going to win the turnover, you're going to be a +2 in the turnover category, and you're going to score a special teams touchdown, and you're going to outrush these guys, and you're going to be perfect on fourth down. You're going to be 6 for 6 in the red zone on scoring chances. I mean, there's some things like that when I start stacking that up, because that's what Joey told me after the game. He's like, this is like one of about 3 games in about 25 to 30 years in all my coaching where you just look at the stat sheet and go, there's no way we should have lost this game.
Yeah. And you're stacking the quarterback. I mean,
you had 3 sacks. Yeah. And you did a lot of what we said. If you can't do it, you don't have a chance. And you did these things. And then
I saw Tech's starting field position was their own 40. Texas Christians was like their own 22. You totally flipped that script from a week ago. I mean, so many things to mention.
This is why I guess it stung even worse. Or like, would you just? It's all about the context.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, and people are going to point to, and I get it. The Will Hammond fumble. Should he just kneel? Should that ball have been handed to Brooks? They felt like, I asked Joey about it after the game, if they felt like they could get a few yards, and he took a shot, and it's a freshman quarterback, and maybe he shouldn't be the one carrying the ball, whatever. But people are going to point to that, and they start finger pointing, but it's still amazing to me, like literally amazing to me, that no one talks about you gave up an 84-yard passing play. It's like it's like that we just gloss over that aspect.
But Chris, it was only in the most crucial part of the game that you gave up the 84-yarder.
You also give up a 75-yard. I mean, so it's all like this was a team meltdown or a team
absolutely
loss.
Total team loss. Yeah. And that's part of, we mentioned the scoring aspect of 3 different parts of the game, but that was also reflected for Texas Tech. Like there was a point at which your offense couldn't get out of its own way. Meanwhile, your defense was giving you opportunities.
And that's
your special teams mixing it back. And then later on, it's like, oh, where'd the defense go? They forget they had to play a fourth quarter while the offense was doing some things. So just all around.
That's where I had the most issue with the offense, honestly, is that in the middle part of this game, you get a turnover on downs. Yep. You had a couple of turnovers and you can't do anything with it. That's where my issue would be, like offensively. And I'm sure they would love to have the Will Hammond play back and do something different, obviously, because it didn't work out. That's the way this thing works. You should have. Well, when it doesn't work, that's what you say.
Which, by the way, was to set up a 44, I think, yard field goal.
Yeah, no gimme.
Shot.
And you missed your first field goal of the year, obviously, in this one, which is a bit of a longer, I think a 49-yard attempt, I think.
Yeah, maybe 50, close to 50.
Yeah, 49 or 50. And so, yeah, there's but I that's what sucks, is that you just couldn't quite put them away, or you couldn't take advantage. Because I remember going to, I think you go to halftime, you're up 3 and you're thinking, oh, you should be up by a lot more.
Yes.
But then you're saying to yourself, okay, well, now you're going to get the ball to start the second half. You're going to do some of these things out of the locker room. And if you can, maybe, and you do this, like you start to pounce and the offense starts to do some things. But, I mean, it's just, gosh, dang it, man. I mean, at 31-14 and people are filing out of there in droves, and it just wasn't to be. And that one hurts, man. It really does, because I think it alters your course a little bit. Now you're really not in the mix for a Big 12 championship, and that's, people can kind of scoff at that and laugh at it, but that, up until if you get this done, you're going to Ames and you're still in control of your own destiny. Now you're going to Ames potentially just trying to get your situation right and play spoiler a bit, now that you've suffered your conference, your second conference loss and back-to-back losses. But I call it corny, but I liked the fight. I think that they responded, and that's why I hate it, because I can't for me personally, I cannot separate myself from the human element of this, because you're around these guys and you see the pain, you see the frustration, you see the, I'm walking up the tunnel after the game with them, and there's a lot of things said and a lot of frustration, and it's a helpless feeling, and you feel like you left it all out there, and it just wasn't quite enough, and But that's sports, and sports is a fickle, insert your expletive here sometimes. And I texted my wife like as soon as the game was over, when I was just sitting there waiting to talk to Joey, and I said, I hate sports sometimes. Hate them because they make you feel terrible. And yet I won't quit it, because there's times when it makes you feel like the highest of highs too. That's why we get that high feeling, because it also makes us feel terrible. And boy, do I have that. And I think a lot of people in that locker room, and I know you do too, have that terrible feeling. And you can't make it go away until you can go, fix it. But that next opportunity is several days away, which will not be easy.
Yeah, going to continue to ride the roller coaster. As I was texting with some Matador mobsters last night, what else are we going to do in the fall? Go to pumpkin patches, corn mazes? Yeah, right. I'll be back again, ready to be heard again from Ames, Iowa next weekend. I thought that this was probably the most First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching a game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page, where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com. I thought that this was probably the most non-complimentary football played so far this year, and it has to do with a lot of what we sort of already mentioned. You just weren't capitalizing on what, say, the other side of the ball had done for you early on. Obviously, we all know you get a strip sack, a fumble. You got it at what I think the Texas Christian 4-yard line, something like that. Thought that was a bizarre play sequence following that. You do give Brooks a chance, but then we're like throwing a fade to a freshman who gets slammed into a wall for not. We've got some attempts through the air. The special teams touchdown was nice, but it's hard for me to be like, woohoo, we took advantage on special teams when it's because you the bed from the 4-yard line offensively is why you had to do that in the first place. What was nice execution, though, but good God, Reese Burkhart, could we unhitch the wagon? Shout out to John Carlos Miller for holding a 15-minute block at the goal line that play does not work without. But it was kind of funny because it happened bang, bang, toss over the head from the holder, and you're like, all right, here we go. And it was like, okay, waiting. Okay, now he's across the goal line. Shout out to John Carlos Miller. Would probably cut the horn frog who could not shuck that block. That was pitiful. But that was one of the first times that you really didn't capitalize, even though you got 7, and I love 7 anyway, anyhow. But obviously offensively, you did not make good of that opportunity, strictly from an offensive standpoint. Had the turnover on downs, then that equals a 3-and-out for you. You have an INT that equals a no-good field goal, I think after like 3 or 4 plays and -2 yards to show for it offensively. So just back to that complimentary football thing. And then, as we've already alluded to, the script kind of flips later on where the offense is doing some things and the defense can't get off of the field. I was curious how you felt about the choice to kick the field goal there in the fourth quarter. I think there was around 11 and a half or 11 minutes, 45 seconds, something like that. I was, and I will take your sympathy, I was watching the football game with a football coach beside me, one who is offensive minded. And we're going back and forth in real time about this call. I think in the purely historical football playbook, Chris, I don't mind kicking that field goal. And I know some will say, well, it took you from 2 possessions to 2 possessions. But it did take away the element of a touchdown and only a field goal to tie the game, would force the opposition to score 2 touchdowns, which I felt like was probably the right call, because obviously if you don't get it, it can be even more demoralizing. That debate will continue, I'm sure, all week long. And as you already mentioned, I didn't know that second touchdown that was going to be forced to be scored was going to be to the tune of 84 yards with 5.5 minutes left to go. What did you make about that particular call? Did you feel like it was conservative, too conservative, right call in the right moment? What do you think? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. Of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. What did you make about that particular call? Do you feel like it was conservative, too conservative, right call in the right moment? What do you think?
Well, again, it's about context. The way I was thinking about it was, you got a true. What was it? What was that? A 4th and 5 or 4th and 6?
I think it's 4th and 6.
4th and 6. Okay, which is not. That's probably going to require a throw. You got a true freshman quarterback in there that's just kind of come in on the road. But I looked at it from a standpoint of.
4th and 3 from the TCU 6. My bad.
Okay. I looked at it from a. If you increase your lead to 13, which is what it did, in that if they score a touchdown and then you were able to come back and kick a field goal, you still have kept I'm thinking like, okay, even if you don't score a touchdown, if you even kick a field goal and you increase your lead to 9, okay, it's still it's still 2 score. But I I personally at the time I did not have an issue with that call. Maybe now that I go back to do over again and you look at it, you're like, okay, I wish you'd have been more aggressive. That's the way this stuff works, right? But at the time I didn't. It's the true freshman aspect of it, of the quarterback. I think that is a lot to it, and you have a good running game at times, but when everybody knows you're going to run, sometimes I don't think you're very good, because you're extremely average up front, and I don't mean, I'm just trying to be real.
And you had two guys missing from that picture, one before the game, then you lose one in the game.
Yeah, Davion Carter was in and out of the game, and Nick Fattig had come in. Obviously, Dalton Merriman was not. He did not play, and Ty Buchanan was starting, and so it's a bit of a. So anyway, I mean,
yeah.
To your point, I just didn't have I didn't have an issue at the time, but knowing what we know now, I mean, yeah, maybe
someone would have told me.
Yeah.
We'd get no more points. They'd get 2 touchdowns, including, again, an 84-yarder. Yeah, I'd done things differently. Okay, so you lose a game on the road by 1 point, which obviously means you did some things well at various times. I thought Harvey Dyson looked like he had a totally extra gear. Like, even on plays where he didn't necessarily get home, he just looked like he was moving differently to me. So I don't know what was happening with 33, but let's go ahead and keep that going as he was wreaking some havoc. CJ Baskerville had one of the individual plays of the year. In the air, catching a line drive in your pocket at your hip, man. I thought that pick was a thing of beauty. And Baskerville is putting together a pretty impactful year so far.
Yeah, I thought some guys on defense played well, but then there's some guys on defense that got burned, and it's just like a 35-yard run, a 75-yard pass, and 84-yard pass. Those are just, you're not really built, especially on the road, and then as it would go on with some of your issues injury wise, to just like keep going tit for tat, on the scoring thing. And I'm jealous of some of the big play scoring, and whether it's you lack that on offense, or maybe more appropriately, like you give up those on defense too much, and you lack some things in the secondary. I would just say you're going to have to do something about corner in the portal this next 6 weeks or so, whenever that opens up in mid-December. That is a position. Mo Horn did not finish the game. Braylon Lux kind of was in and out of the game. Macho Stevenson is the one that got beat on that 84-yarder. You've just got to get a lot better there in man-to-man situations. TCU was able to, in those same type of plays, when you kind of one-on-one out there, you throw it to the perimeter. I mean, Caleb Douglas and Coy Aiken are out there, and if they break one tackle, and I guess we can point to Caleb Douglas or Coy Aiken need to have more juice or be stronger or whatever, but those are guys that have been playing well, but they get brought down, and you're not able to do the same thing on defense too many times, which equals
Savion Williams, you got any cousins that want to come to West Texas? That dude was unbelievable. How many tackles did he dodge or break? Like 15? Because I counted 5 on one play. I mean, he would not go down where first contact was made.
And I think TCU's probably kicking themselves because, first of all, TCU's not very good either. I think you're kind of finding out that you're not very good, or you're very average or whatever, but TCU's not that either. I think they're probably kicking themselves that they weren't really doing things with him much sooner in the season than they are now, because this has just been the last couple of weeks. They've won them both games at Utah and then back at home against Texas Tech. But he's a specimen. There was a lot of Senior Bowl folks, a lot of NFL scouts on the sidelines. There was a Chiefs scout and a Cowboy scout, which I thought, man, one of you guys is doing a lot better than the other these days. But there was a lot of focus on the wideouts in this game, namely Caleb Douglas and Savion Williams. There was I was watching a lot of videos taken in pregame, a lot of this, a lot of that, and with Savion Williams and Caleb Douglas, who both look the part. They both have the measurables, and then obviously the production to go with it. Caleb Douglas obviously played a really good game, but Savion Williams was very impressive, yes.
Yeah, Douglas was the other one I wanted to mention. 140 on 9 catches, some contested catches, down the field catches.
And a missed face mask on one play that I don't know what it is about missed face mask calls in Fort Worth, but there was one shot down the sideline, and I mean he just gets it grabbed, let go, and he comes up going, "Hey," and the referee's like, "Yeah, I didn't see anything." I'm like,
there are some good-looking co-eds in the stands. I don't know if that has to do anything with it or what exactly is distracting them, but that was awful. Go ahead and make you some money.
They told the official tells the Joey McGuire is asking about this particular call. The official that's supposedly supposed to see this says to Coach McGuire, who's more in the middle of the field, "There's too many people in the way in the sideline, and I couldn't see it." Which is a biggest crock of like he just passed the buck. Like, hey, don't blame me. Your people are in the way. I'm like,
I've never heard that before.
I'm like, then throw a flag. If there's a sideline warning or people are not where they're supposed to be, then throw a flag for that or issue a sideline warning. I mean that I just So anyway, but that's neither here nor there. But
as far as the wounded leaving that ball game, obviously the headliner, I guess, Baron Morton, who we don't even see come back out there in the second half. But who else was on the list that you really think is notable? Because I know it became kind of a long list by the end of it.
Well, you didn't finish the game with either one of your two top free safeties. Joseph Plunk finished the game. Chapman Lewis didn't finish this game. Devin Cromwell did not finish this game. Braylon Lux in and out. Mo Horn, one of your starting corners, did not finish this game. I think Davion Carter, Quincy Ledette were in and out of the game. I think they both seem to be okay. Obviously, there is some concern about Baron Morton. I don't know. I mean, Joey told me after the game it's kind of inconclusive on exactly what we're dealing with here. I think they wanted to get him back to Lubbock and kind of get a better look at it. It's I'm going to guess a collarbone or shoulder issue.
Yeah.
Is it a shoulder sprain, or it wasn't dislocated or anything? And if it's collarbone, if there's a fracture there, I mean, there's just all kinds of various degrees of what it could be. I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying Baron won't play this next weekend. But that's just purely speculation on my part, but I think that's probably a safe bet. So we'll kind of talk maybe more about that on tomorrow's show. But that's kind of, and then obviously you didn't have in this game no Dre McCray, no Bryce Ramirez, no Dalton Merriman. Then obviously Duda Banks obviously is out for the season. So there was you went from prior to the Baylor game like that's the healthiest we've been to now you're at 10 to 12 deep on starters. At Taj Brooks even in and out of this game that he was in the locker room for periods of time. So I may have missed some folks. I mean, I try to write these down during the game so I don't forget. And my list was it was lengthy.
Woof. Well, here we are, regathering once again, looking for a response as you open up the week. Double-digit underdog as you are headed to Ames, Iowa to try to do something that, well, nobody's done so far this season. So that's all. No hill for a climber, right? Chris, appreciate the time and insight as always, man. Enjoyed it as much as is possible. It ain't digging ditches exactly, so it could be worse. We'll be back to discuss more and process what this show will look like, at least for the time being, assuming that Will Hammond will remain at the steering wheel. So we'll get into that coming up. Looking forward to it, and we'll see you then.
All right. Sounds good, man. Keep hope alive, ?
Yes.
Oh, and lastly, I will say somber mood outside the locker room and everything like that. Tons of friends and family there, and I will walk through a lot of them. But as I get closer to the bus, I had somebody say, "Hey man, can I meet you?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Locked On Texas Tech," and I want to say, and I hope I think his first name was Brian. He said, "Me and my girlfriend's dad bond over you guys. We both listen. I met the girlfriend too. And she says, my dad listens to you guys every morning. And I said, man, I appreciate that. So we took a picture together and all those things. But it was, I will say I probably wasn't in the best mood or the best mind frame, but it was great to meet you guys. Appreciate you saying something. And thank you to all those out there that are listening and are invested into what we're doing here. And we're all Red Raiders through thick and thin. And it just wasn't a fun time, but there's better times ahead, hopefully.
That's right. Appreciate you guys for being out there. We're bringing potential sons-in-law, fathers-in-law together. That's what we do. We'll work on the daughters-in-law and the mothers-in-law in some months to come, possibly. But appreciate you all for being out there. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. A special thanks to the everydayers in the audience, including some weekend overtime shift work. And shout out also to those Matador Mobsters. Enjoyed chopping it up with you following the ball game on Saturday night. Become one, if you like, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text straight to your phone. So hit the show notes, check out the link for a free 14-day trial there. For Chris, I'm Casey. We appreciate the time as always and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.